This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Hey, buddy, just wanted to say thanks again for the awesome job you did Friday morning. That was great. Just started out our day perfectly and put a cap on our event. I just thought it was awesome, man. You did a great job. But even more than that, just appreciate your spirit in the room, man. Seemed like you're just more alive and just more enthusiastic than ever about things you're working on and things the family's doing. So I just want you to know I appreciate you, man. Travel safe.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Good day and welcome to episode 2225 and greetings from Irvine, California. Now, I happen to be staying at one of the hotels here where we have held many events over the years. Can you guess the name of that hotel? If you're watching on a video platform, write it in the comments below. If you have a question of any sort or a comment of any sort, you can always go to jasonhartman.com/ask. That's jasonhartman.com/ask, where you can write your comment about what hotel this might be, what hotel resort, or make a comment or ask a question on any topic at all. And by the way, speaking of which, if you have not tried out our brand new chatbot, we are now on our, I think, fourth chatbot. Go to jasonhartman.com. If you have a question about real estate investing, even a very complex question, you would be amazed at how well my little clone can answer that question. I hate to admit it, but sometimes better than yours truly. So folks, I am out of a job soon. The computers, the machines are taking over the world. Remember, Stanley Kubrick's great movie that you must watch, again, because you've probably all seen it, is the movie 2001. It is so fantastic. Remember the HAL 9000, the machine that took over? It's fascinating stuff. And here we are living that. So all of these things eventually become true, just like 1984, George Orwell's 1984 came true, just like Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 came true, just like Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged came true, and just like, who wrote it? I can't think of it right now, but Brave New World came true too. Anyway, it's really scary how this stuff is coming true, but hey, it is what it is. All we can do is manage it as time goes on. Anyway, we've got a great show for you today as we continue this discussion on institutional investors. Fascinating stuff. Before we get to that, just a couple of comments from yours truly here. I recently finished up almost a week in Las Vegas where I was hosting the Collective Mastermind event and then speaking at another event. And I just thought I'd share a couple of the things that I spoke about at this other event. Now, at the Collective Mastermind, I did a speech on the importance of Memento Mori. Yes, some of you know what Memento Mori is, but if you've ever studied Stoicism, which I am a huge fan of philosophy, I remember my younger self, many years ago, I used to go sit in the bookstore and just read philosophy books. I know, sounds weird, the bookstore, not the library. I bought some of them, but I read a lot of them in the bookstore. Just always thought philosophy held the answer to life. And it does to many things, but not everything, certainly. But Memento Mori, it means remember your death. Remember your death. Now, that may sound depressing and morbid, but we're all going there. And that is a sure bet. It's a sure bet. You know, the only two things guaranteed are death and taxes, right? And we're all going there, but you must remember your death so you can remember to live remember to live. And by the way, if you want to go check out a great old episode of mine, go to jasonhartman.com and look up the episode on 4,000 weeks. That is the average lifespan, 4,000 weeks. And that author that I interviewed on that particular episode had some great insights and great advice. So check that out. But what I want to talk to you about here is what I talked about just a few days ago in Las Vegas during the speech I gave to a group of commercial property investors and syndicators, some of them single family investors. And that is about the biggest loss, the biggest cost that we all face. And what I talked about is something I have mentioned on the show before. And it's about the whole idea that, look, when someone is a scammer, a shyster, a scumbag, right? And they are giving you bad advice and they are promoting maybe an investment deal that is bogus, right? They're hyping up the numbers, they're lying to you about this, that, and the other thing. You know, you can take that scoundrel to court, right? You can take them to court and you can try to recover your damages. It's pretty hard to do it, but it can be done. It is possible after much expense of time and money. And you can do that. But what's interesting is that they usually don't cost you the most money. What usually costs you the most money is the bad advice you get from the scoundrels that are the doomers, that are the clickbait engineers that cause you to miss opportunities because they pollute your mind with lies and doom and all of this stuff just to get views, just to get a lot of views. And so these people are the ones that should be the most liable for their lies and misrepresentations. It's the people who cause you to miss opportunities. So think of all the doomers out there and how you may have at one time or another listened to their bad advice because you thought the sky was falling. You thought, hey, Chicken Little is right, the sky is falling. And you didn't take action. And you lost out on an opportunity. Remember, you can't hear the dogs that don't bark. And remember, the human mind is really not very good at all at evaluating what didn't happen. It's pretty darn good at evaluating, well, it's not perfect at this either, but it's pretty good at evaluating what did happen, but it's pretty bad at evaluating what didn't happen. And so those are the people that cost you the most money, the people that cause you to be inactive, to not take action. Those are usually the most expensive mistakes you'll make, is the inaction mistake. And so there's always an opportunity cost. We can choose one thing or we can choose another, or as the great Rush song Free Will says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. That is very important. So, misrepresentation, a false statement of a material fact by one party, which affects the other party's decision in agreeing to a contract. Now, this is from Investopedia, but their definition of misrepresentation is too narrow. Because think about it. They're saying it's a false statement of a fact that causes you to agree to a contract, right? But what about a false statement of a material fact that causes you to not engage in a contract, right? To not buy the property you should have purchased. I think by now, any of us in life can see that the shoulda, coulda, woulda is the highest cost we ever have. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah, I could have bought that property. I could have been rich by now had I bought that property, but I didn't buy that property because someone, well, I was listening to Peter Schiff or Nick Girelli, and they talked me out of it. They told me the world was coming to an end, or Harry Dent for that matter, right? You just heard him on another doomer and gloomer, right? And they made me miss the opportunity. So this is the most important cost you'll face, the cost of lost opportunity. And that's my thought for the day. Okay, let's get to our guest and talk about institutional real estate investing. This guy's got some great data and some great stats and some great insights into the rental market. So let's listen in. This is a trailing 35-year average, meaning that the 35-year-old person, right? That's why you're doing the trailing, right? Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, no, it's
because that's the year that they're forming a household or buying a house.
So typically, right, and it's getting later, right? Yep. Probably when I was young, it was probably 27, 28. Sure. when, you either got out of college and you got your first job and then you met your spouse and then you chose to have children. You're now 27, 28. That age is pushing up to 35, which is why our average resident is now 39 years old. So the underbuilding, as you can see from this chart, it's the red is significant, and it's been happening for the 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
And if you look out to 24, we're a little bit under the average, so that you're not catching up. And that's what this bottom right sort of chart shows. The shortage is growing, not getting worse. We're going to need to build a lot more homes to just catch up.
Yeah.
And that's going to require a significant amount of investment to catch up.
Absolutely. So let me share these numbers. Okay. So there is disagreement on how significant the shortage is. It goes anywhere from 1 to 6 million, depending on which of 11 major groups, including Fannie, Freddie, Zillow. I mean, they all put out
Bureau,
and I've shared those before. Okay. So anywhere from 1 to 6 million homes is the shortage, right? And here you're using a baseline of 3 million. You're kind of going in the middle saying, okay, we're going to take 3 million and assume that's the shortage today.
Correct.
But here's how much worse it gets. It gets worse every year. Next year, it's 3.2 million. The following year, the shortage is 3.3 million. And then it's 3.4 million. And then in 2028, it's 3.6 million. So no matter what baseline number you start from, whether it be 1 million, 3 million, or 6 million, the shortage is getting worse, not better. Okay.
Exactly.
And here's the thing that none of these charts share. And Richard, maybe you can speak to this, because I've had a hard time coming up with good, solid numbers on this, but I know it's true because I experience it. But what this doesn't tell you, always ask, what does the chart, what does the speaker, what are they not telling me? What they're not telling you is the price of these homes, the price segment. Okay, builders aren't building many entry-level houses. They're building more expensive houses because they're more profitable. It's very hard to make money on cheap entry-level houses if you're a builder. So, they're going where it makes sense for their business.
Well, correct, right? Because they have a profit margin, just like anybody else. That's whether they're selling homes or they're selling, bicycles or widgets, right? They have a profit margin, and the profit margin is higher on what they call move-up homes, right? Your second home or your third home. Right. That's one thing. The other thing is, Jason, which amazes me, my father was a home builder in the late 50s and early 60s. We have not changed how we build a home.
I know.
You buy the land, you scrape it down, you pour a foundation, you have a different crew come in, they put the framing up, electrician comes. I mean, we have an iPhone.
It's an extremely inefficient process.
Right.
There's tons of waste.
Be a better way.
The better way is to build components in factories and bring them to the work site. Okay, but that's a different discussion.
That's a topic for another show, but that's the fundamental issue that's affecting why we can't catch up.
Right. And let me tell you, folks, there's a huge stigma against manufactured housing. I think that needs to go away, but it's not going away anytime soon, in my opinion. The 3D printed homes are not the solution. Those definitely don't work. I mean, you see all this stuff on social media. Oh, look at these $10,000 homes. No, they're not $10,000 homes. That's just the 800 square foot outside walls of the house. It doesn't include electrical, plumbing, HVAC, kitchen cabinets, fixtures, toilets. It doesn't include anything. Okay, these are just lies. They're clickbait headlines. Buying a house on Amazon, right? Amazon sells homes. Okay, you can manufactured houses, but you have to do all sorts of engineering and site planning. It's so much more expensive than it looks.
But to your point, someone who's smarter than us will figure out, because there are people working on it, how you can do a component home that. If you or I walked in, we couldn't tell that from, a $400,000 starter home.
It's hard to tell already. Some of these manufactured homes are really quite good.
Exactly.
There's still, the lenders know there's a stigma. So the lenders, not only do the buyers have a stigma or the renters, but the lenders have a stigma, and they won't loan on them the same way.
Or won't loan as much, so that makes it much more difficult.
Right.
But that's a systemic problem that someone will have to address if we're going to solve this shortage.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to the affordability analysis.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on video now, you see this affordability and the constraints issue here. But Richard, go ahead and explain this to us.
Sure. So on the left is the monthly housing cost, and this is everything, the entire cost of the home. So obviously the mortgage payment. So you see that $2,298 here in the gray. And then you have PMI, right? Because most of these mortgages have PMI, right? Primary mortgage insurance, because they're putting less than 20% down.
Right.
You have the maintenance, property taxes, insurance.
Right. Remember, you have PMI as the owner occupant, but you don't have PMI as the investor, because as an investor, you have to put 20% or 25% down.
Right. So there's one reason our homes are cheaper. You have insurance, right? And you have typically a homeowners association fee. So this is sort of all in. Now this is 67%. So this is at the high of our affordability. Difference can be as low as 40. Still significant. I will tell you, Jason, historically, over the last 50 years, renting a home has been somewhere around 15 to 20% cheaper than owning. And that reason is we're financing the down payment, right? So we're providing the down payment. What's happened over the last 3 to 4 years is interest rates are up, home prices are more expensive, maintenance costs are up, insurance is up, and insurance is certainly not going down with the two storms we just experienced. And you have an HOA, so typically we are the HOA, so we don't have to pay an HOA in our communities. So that all of that combines to why we're so much cheaper. We maintain 5,000 homes. We don't maintain one home. So
right.
we can get the lawn mowed cheaper. We can get the garbage service cheaper. Yeah. We can get the water heater fixed less expensively. All of that combines to the savings that you see here on the chart.
Okay, so you're saying it's 67% more expensive to own the same apples to apples home than it is to rent it. The thing that people lose, though, as renters, is they lose the investment opportunity. People treat their home like an investment nowadays, which I think makes sense. So they lose that, but
That's
they
correct.
get a lower cost. Are you factoring in on this housing cost chart that you're showing? Are you factoring in the down payment cost, like financing it into the mix somehow?
Yes. So that we're financing the down payment.
I know you are, but
yeah. So on this chart on the left, that would be subsumed, right, accounted for in the mortgage payment, if you will. This $2,300 mortgage payment. But this does not reflect having to come out of pocket for whatever 5%, 10%, 20% of the home cost.
Okay. All right. So historical cost of owning versus renting is really interesting, because anywhere from 2000 up until 2008, it was cheaper to purchase than rent, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, I got it. I see the way it works. And then from 2009 to 2012, it was cheaper to
purchase. So you see on the left, these green bars, it was more expensive to own. There was only these 4 years during the GFC where it was cheaper to purchase because you could get a house for next to nothing.
I think your chart misses the COVID data, though. I don't think it has that right. I think during COVID, at the beginning of that era, it was definitely cheaper to buy. I mean, for a while. Then the prices went up, and then later the interest rates went up, so, got a lot more expensive. But
again, this is a data provider who we trust and has provided good data. So this would indicate, right, in 20, yes, it was very close.
Yeah, right. I would even disagree. I would say, of course it depends. It depends on, a lot of things. But
so we can give you that. Say in 20 and 21, it was cheaper to own, but with an increase in rates, and what's really affecting this chart to the right is home price appreciation, right?
Right.
We've just had unparalleled appreciation in the last couple of years, and that coupled with higher rates just makes a starter home not affordable.
Yeah. And the other advantage, though, you have with owning, besides tax deduction, appreciation, investment benefits, is you have the certainty of locking in your price for 30 years. Other than property taxes, your insurance, your maintenance costs, they're going to fluctuate a little bit. But the actual mortgage, especially if you locked it in during the super low COVID era rates, that mortgage isn't going up. So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, what we're finding in our business is there is a percentage of our residents who don't want to own a home ever.
Yeah.
And that's driven by a couple of things. They want flexibility. So let's take our millennial couple who's 38 years old, lives in one of our homes, and they might want to live in Atlanta for 3 years or 4 years, but then they may have to move to Denver, or they may have to move to Dallas. Yep. And so they don't want to have to sell a house, buy a new house. So it's that flexibility. The other thing that we provide is no maintenance lifestyle. So they don't have to mow the lawn. The toilet breaks, They go on their little app and, someone's there the next day or that evening to fix. Yep. So that maintenance-free lifestyle, those are the two things that are driving our business and anyone who's going to get in the build-to-rent business that provides something different than home ownership.
Richard, talk to us about rent increases and your projection of, for investors on the ability to raise rents over time. Are you trying to raise rents about 4 or 5% a year? I mean, the last couple of years you could raise them a lot more than that, but now it's that is curtailed.
You obviously know a lot about the business because that's about where we are. What we call blended rent growth is in the mid single digits. So let's just say 4 to 7%.
Yep.
When I say blended, that means people moving in pay one rent, and obviously when you renew a lease, you pay another rent. So we have renewal rent, new leases. The blended is somewhere between, let's say 4 and 7%.
And
during COVID, people were doing 12, 15%.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in that. My history is what we have a saying in this business called heads in the beds. So you want to keep your resident in the home,
right,
wherever it is, because moving a resident out, changing out residents, it costs money, right? Because you get a month or two vacant, you have to paint the home, fix it up. And so it's better to keep the heads in the beds, as they say. And so I'm willing to sacrifice rent to keep that resident in my home.
So Richard, what is the delta between the new resident rent and the renewal rent? Do you typically see that you get a certain percentage more on the new person than you do on the renewal person?
Yeah. So in theory, right, let's just take January 1st, you move a resident in and they've stayed 12 months, although we are now offering 2 and 3 year leases, just as an aside.
Do you put escalations in those 2 and 3 year leases?
We do. 4% typically.
4%. Okay.
And we make the 3-year rent the best deal for the resident, obviously, because we want to keep them in there. When I say the best deal, if you take the 3-year rent with a 4% increase and average it out over the time, it'll be a less rent than the first year rent if you only stay for a year, because we want people to stay longer. I don't know if that made sense. To get to your point, if someone moves in January 1st and then they stay a year and they get ready to renew, the market may have changed. The market, particularly during COVID, but even now, may have gone up 12%. And so I want to keep that resident on his renewal or her renewal in the home. So if the market's gone up 12%, I might say, you know what? We're just going to raise your rent 8%. Whereas if a new resident comes in off the street, I'm going to say, your rent's 12% more than that person who's been living there for a year.
It looks like the difference in that case is about, a third.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. And it just depends on the market, whether you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, Tampa, Florida, Dallas, Texas,
of course,
and even so much as some different micro markets within a particular what we call MSA. Yeah.
A lot of investors are stressed about increasing costs, especially insurance rates. I don't think they should be stressed about increasing taxes because that means the value of your property went up. So deal with it. Be happy the value went up and your property taxes got reassessed. And you can always dispute that to, get it down a little bit. But on the insurance subject specifically, what a lot of investors don't understand, and a lot of business people or voters, I should say, don't understand, is that businesses are pass-through entities. Okay. Look, when minimum wage goes up, when the cost of anything goes up, they just raise their prices and pass it through to the customers. Why would anybody think it's any different than on a real estate business? You do pass that cost through to the tenant, but you can't do it the next day like you can with a restaurant, right? If minimum wages go up, I can raise my restaurant prices tomorrow if I own a restaurant. Okay.
Correct.
But you can't do it that quickly with real estate, but you do pass that cost through to the tenant, right? I mean, maybe you can talk.
Absolutely. You have to, because you've invested a certain amount of capital, as you well know, into this particular asset, into this home that you're renting. And as your operating costs go up, you need to recoup that. Otherwise, you're not going to get the return on your investment. This is what I talk with the political and the folks who believe that we're evil, because we charge rent. Well, we need to maintain that home. And we need to make a certain return on our investment to maintain that home. And insurance is a big part of what we call non-controllable expenses. We have no control. We can control how much we have to pay for light bulbs and paint to paint the home because we do.
Well, to some extent, you can't control any of that stuff, really.
Yeah, true, but by scale and by managing properly, insurance and property taxes are two things that are just we have no control over.
Yeah.
Now, with the more homes you own, cheaper the insurance is, right, per home. That's one reason we're cheaper than owning the home. But insurance is a real problem. And, we've just had 2 hurricanes. It's not going down. We have fires out west, as you well know. The insurance market is not healthy.
No question about it. But my point being, investors should stop stressing about this stuff because you're going to pass it through. Your real estate investments are pass-through entities. The tenant is going to end up paying that bill. It's not going to be tomorrow because you have a lease.
Yep.
So you can't raise it right away, but you will get that money back.
Right. And just like their groceries are going up and their cost of going out to eat, the cost of owning a car is going up, that cost will get passed through and you will recoup it over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard, any questions I didn't ask you? Anything else you want to share before we wrap it up here?
No, I would just say, Jason, that for your folks listening and watching, this business is, I'll use a baseball analogy. This business is in batting practice. We're not even in the first inning. This, over the next 30 years, is going to be a business to be reckoned with. And now is the time, whether you're a small investor or obviously big institutions are getting in this business, they don't do this blindly. So it is a real opportunity to get in on the ground floor on something that as I said, in probably 10 or 15 years, we will look back and say, wow, this is like the real thing.
Yeah, I know. It always seems expensive at the time, but all you have to do is wait a couple of years and look in the rearview mirror and you'll think, gosh, that was a great deal. I got,
Exactly. And whether you own 1 unit or 1,000, you can make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I always say, Richard, income property is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. It's the most tax-favored asset class in the United States. It's just such a great asset class because it's multidimensional. We make our return in a lot of different ways, and that's what's really wonderful about it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Give out your website.
Sure. It's www.live-Quinn, Quinn.com.
Good stuff. Richard Ross, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.